Guess who's back, even though I never left. I have another scary story for you guys. I wanted to apologize because I'm dumb and I didn't realize that Loie Lane had already read the story that I did for my 40K special. I know a lot of you were looking forward to a really long, scary story, and I'm sorry that a lot of you had already heard it. But there's nothing I could do about it now. But I have another story now. And this story was sent to me by EMMAKATE, and I love this human being, and I'm gonna put her information down below. Thank you for sending me this story. I love you both. And I'll also have the story linked down below so you guys can follow along and read with me, or you can read it on your own if you don't want to hear me read it. But this story is called My Shadow Has Eyes. I'm used to being followed. Since I moved here, the neighbors in my apartment have been relentless. They have a problem with me because of my skin color, and it's not an assumption. I've never been hurt, luckily. Well, for a while at least. The tough guys around here only ever followed me. Intimidation seems to be their game, with an end goal of getting me to move out. Well, it used to be that way. In my hometown, we didn't have any alternative meanings for May Day. It was simply a day of remembrance of the labor strikes, that's it. I learned very quickly that Cleveland operates on a very different dictionary. It was 6 in the morning that Monday when I stepped outside to start my morning jog. I couldn't have been stretching for more than a couple minutes when I heard an all too familiar voice from behind me. "The fuck your little bitch ass going?" It was Jamal. He was the most aggressive and intimidating of the thugs on my floor. Jamal was a massive black man who towered over me by at least 1.5 feet, and he could easily have fit 3 of me inside of him. He had a thing for making me flinch. "Come on, man, I'm just trying to go for a run. Can you cut me some slack today?" I couldn't hide my nervousness. Jamal was silent for a moment, as if he was almost confused by me asking. "It's May Day, my dude, and yo ass is the only cracker living in the hood." Before I had time to ask, a couple of his friends joined him by his side like panthers ready to pounce. "You've got a 5-second head start, then we're gonna fuck your punk ass up." He held up an open palm and began counting down. I took off as fast as I could, hoping that 5 seconds would get me enough time to outrun the skyscraper that was Jamal and his friends. I must have made it 100 feet before I felt the hands shove me to the pavement. I don't know what time it was when I came to, only that the sun had finally come up and I was laying behind an old Toyota on bricks in an alley. My body was screaming at me, angry with me for not running faster and causing myself so much pain. I felt my pockets and my phone was gone. They didn't take my cash, which I guess was nice of them, all things considered. I scanned the pavement for any blood or signs of my phone when a pair of eyes met mine. I rubbed my own to be sure what I was seeing was actually there. The eyes were intense, squinting, almost as if they were scolding me for what I allowed to happen to myself. They were a bold jade color that wasn't afraid of holding back any emotions. I never wanted to have a concussion so badly before. It was the only way to explain the shadow looking back at me. After a standoff of gazes, I began to test my shadow. When I moved, it moved. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary there. I walked into the shadows, however, and it didn't go away. My shadow was bold and its eyes were even more intense. It never broke its visual lock on me. I tried to convince myself that I was hallucinating. "I've just been jumped," I told myself. "That's it. I just need a doctor." Upon my uttering of those words, the shadow became irate. Its eyes widened and began thrusting its pupils in one direction, then back at me, then in the same direction. It appeared that it wanted me to go somewhere. I refused at first, obviously. Something about the pain and anger in the look in its eyes worked me, though. I began to follow the path it was making. As we walked, those green eyes never let me out of their sight, except to point me in a new direction. I considered trying to run away before it dawned on me that I couldn't escape my shadow. Block after block, the journey seemed pointless, until we came up to the stoop of a decrepit house with boards on all of the first-floor windows and graffiti on what was left of the aluminum siding. My shadow stated straight ahead as I stood at the foot of the steps. It was unrelenting. I knew it wanted me to go in, and I did. I heard a deep voice laugh as I climbed in through a loose board covering a window. "This little white dude thinks he's a baller now." Jamal and his friends walked right up to me, ready to finish the job they started this morning. I started to back away until a piercing sound of some sort of animal crying out in pain brought me to my feet. Everything started becoming blurry and my head burned as if it was torn open from the inside out. I tried reaching out for something to grasp and fell onto my stomach, and that's when I saw bright white eyes on the shadow looming over my pitiful body. I woke up in my bed in pajamas, freshly showered and well rested. It was dark outside. I couldn't find my phone still, so I turned on the TV to catch the time on the news or weather channel. Breaking news for you tonight here in Cleveland. I'm Tiffany Tucker. Thanks for tuning in to Action 19 News. Chris Tanaka is off for the evening. 4 bodies were just discovered in an abandoned house in East Cleveland. They were brutally murdered in what Police Chief Calvin Williams is calling one of the worst murders he's seen in his entire career. We do not have an official statement from the police as to why these men were attacked, but our sources say the home in which the bodies were found is in fact a known drug house. We'll keep you updated as we learn more information. My heart tried escaping. I scanned the room looking for anything, something telling me my life was a dream. Sweat began pushing its way out of my pores. Did I do that? I couldn't remember attacking anyone. I couldn't have. As I was lost in my frantic thoughts, I saw the familiar green eyes on the wall next to me. "You're welcome," a deep, distorted voice growled from the same direction. And that's the end of that story. I'm gonna read this video just because that one was so short, but I thought it was really interesting. So, okay, and I know that somebody sent me this story because it just came into my head, but I am so sorry. I just stalked all of my social media and I cannot find the message from them. So if it was you, just let me know, okay? But this story is called, "I work as an overnight security guard for a hospital." I work the graveyard shift as a security guard for a hospital, and I do have some stories to tell. First, let me fill you in on the general layout of the campus. The main building is divided into two parts. The first part consists of a ground-level emergency department, an operating room on the first floor, and a child birthing center on the second floor. The second part holds the patient units. There are 7 floors here, and each wing is used by various patient classes: cardiac, behavioral, pediatric, etc. Apart from the main building is the McCammon building, which is a historic structure that used to serve as a nursing school back in the late 1800s. It was a rectangular square building that was used partially for classes and partially for dormitories. Presently, it is used as an office space for handling management needs and things of that sort. It's only open during the day, unlike the rest of the hospital, which operates 24/7. My main duty as a security guard is to handle disorderly patients who are usually having psychotic breakdowns or high on drugs, and to patrol the premises and make sure nothing is out of the ordinary. The exterior of the campus can get a little bit creepy at night, and my eyes are always peeled for wild animals, especially coyotes. Truth be told, I'd rather spend my entire shift outside with the coyotes than spend 5 minutes inside McCammon. I have to check it at least once a night, and I always make sure to bring my coworker with me. We scan the building's 4 floors and move on without a second glance. We both agree that the place gives us the creeps. The hospital staff likes to chatter about how hospitals are haunted places. It's reasonable. There's at least 1 death per day at the hospital I work at. This presumption, coupled with a tired mind, can give one the impression of spotting a ghost as it makes its journey to the other side. I've never seen anything remotely paranormal during my shift, let alone my life. My coworkers swear he's seen unexplained shadows move out of the corners of his eyes. Our perspectives changed the night we decided to play the stupidest game ever. I was sitting in my office with my coworker, Frank, shooting the shit. Our office was located just outside the emergency department, where we directed lost family members to the rooms of their respective relatives. On this particular night, a mutual buddy of ours, Mark, popped his head in. Mark was obsessed with ghosts, and the topic inevitably made its way into our conversation. "Do you guys ever see anything when you go through McCammon?" he began. We both shook our heads. "You know that's the most haunted place, right?" I rolled my eyes. "Mark, not this again." "It's true. You know that it used to be a nursing school? Well, apparently it was a wicked tough one. Exams were brutal. They were so brutal that nursing students began to kill themselves because they were afraid of failing out." "That's dumb," I said. "There was this one group of nursing students. It was around 1910. I can't remember the exact year. But they were so scared of failing their exam that they made a suicide pact. They all jumped from the roof and killed themselves right in front of the entrance." I looked at him dumbfounded. "Seriously? That's a load of crap." Mark regarded me with his eyes. "You don't believe me?" "Not one bit." "You know the glass cabinet with the creepy dolls on the second floor?" I knew exactly what he was talking about. Near the main entrance, there's a glass cabinet that displays 5 homemade dolls that are dressed up as nurses. They stood 14 inches tall and wore those old nursing school outfits. You know, with the red crosses. I never gave them further inspection because there was something unsettling about them. There have been problems of hooligans stealing them in the past, but never on my watch. They were indeed creepy, watching me as I did my rounds through McCammon. Well, they say that the 5 souls of those nurses became trapped in the dolls. 5 students, 5 dolls. They say that if you go to the 3rd floor, stand outside room 333, and knock on it 3 times so the 3rd strike lands just as the clock turns 3:33, the dolls will play hide and seek with you. I laughed out loud at this. Mark shifted uncomfortably. I looked over at Frank, who was also silent. "Come on, Frank, you can't actually be buying this." "I heard about it too," Frank mumbled. I don't know how the 2 of them convinced me to try out this foolish experiment. It was obviously a ghost story fabricated by some bored staff member who wanted to get a rise out of his coworkers. But before I knew it, I was standing outside of room 333 in the McCammon building with Frank and Mark. It was 3:32 in the morning, and I felt like a fool. "Well, here goes nothing," I said as I rapped on the wooden door 3 times. The sound echoed through the dark hallway and faded away. I checked my watch, and it was 3:33. We waited in silence for a few moments. I braced myself for something, but nothing came. "Come on, let's go." I heard a door close downstairs, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. I looked at the other 2, who were equally as shaken. I grabbed Mark firmly by the shoulders. "Are you fucking with us?" I hissed. "Is somebody pulling a prank on us?" Mark violently shook his head, and I could see the terror in his eyes as my flashlight illuminated his face. We need to check it out. It could be a trespasser. I hope. We slowly descended to the first floor. As we came into the hallway, I wondered how frightened we looked. I led the way with Frank close behind me, while Mark was literally glued to his ass. We probably resembled some demented version of the mystery gang. I flashed my light on all the doors, and none were open. My light came to the cabinet and my heart leaped into my throat. Yeah, they were gone. We're fucked now, boys, Mark said softly and crossed himself. I turned to him. Mark, I swear to God, if you're pulling a fast one on us, I'll throw you off the roof myself. When I said these words, a chill swept through me. The temperature must have suddenly dropped 10 degrees and I shivered. The air itself felt almost depressed. A whisper drifted through my ear. It started. We have to find them, or something bad will happen. It was Frank. Can't you feel it, the negative energy? I could, and I motioned toward the nearest door. Come on, I said. We crept around the first floor, opening each door with great anticipation, not knowing what was in store for us. To my relief, the floor was empty. There was still no sign of the dolls. We gathered in the hallway and were about to make our way up to the second floor when we heard a slight patter above us. It sounded like 3 or 4 children were running around. Pit-pat, down the hallway toward us. A pause, then pit-pat in the opposite direction. This happened 3 times, then stopped. Shit. Oh, fuck that, Mark whimpered and turned toward the door. My hand shot out and found his elbow. Don't be a pussy, we're in this together. I could see Mark's face glistening with sweat and his eyes wide with terror. We climbed the stairway with great caution. We clung to each other in fear, savoring each breath as if it were our last. When we came to the hallway, we were greeted by the slight tinkling of bells. The source was coming from the far end of the hallway. I shone my light into the darkness, and nothing. The faint tinkle warmly greeted us. I wanted to turn and run, but something was drawing me in. I slowly led the group towards the sound. I reached one of the doors and I stopped. I motioned to my ear and pointed beyond the door. The other 2 nodded, and I gripped the doorknob and slowly let myself in. On the other side of the door was a bathroom. It was one of those old dormitory bathrooms with a rounded sink in the middle and undivided latrines on both sides. In the porcelain sink were 3 dolls. I cautiously approached them and slowly extended my hand, as if the merest touch would set my hand on fire. I picked one up. It wore a white nurse's dress with a red cross on the right breast. On its head was a white cap with another red cross. Its black hair fell all over its face, covering its features. I swept its hair back to reveal a faded, smiling face. Its porcelain skin was icy cool to the touch, and I shuddered. We each returned a doll to the cabinet. 2 to go, I told myself. Mark and Frank were silent, exhausted from the terror of the night. I was relieved that they were with me. If I had to do this by myself, I think I would have lost my mind. Do you think we ought to split up? Whispered Frank. Cover more ground? I wheeled around and faced him. No! Don't you watch horror movies? No matter what happens, we cannot split up. If the entity is malevolent, it'll kill us when we're alone. If anything, we should tie a rope around us so we don't get separated. My logic trumped their fearful state. Besides, I felt much better with Frank and Mark close by. Glued at the hip, we went to the 3rd floor and inspected it thoroughly. We couldn't find any dolls, and I kept my ears pricked for any noises. When the 3rd floor seemed safe, we climbed to the 4th. While in the stairwell, the sound of running footsteps greeted us. We must be getting close to another one. As we stepped into the hallway, the footsteps faded and we watched a door slam shut, making all 3 of us jump in unison. What came next made my balls crawl up into my body. You know that cheesy child's laugh in Roller Coaster Tycoon? The one you hear over and over again which makes you want to punch that kid in the face? Well, hearing that same laugh now filled me not with frustration, but terror. Raw, uncensored terror. To my left, Mark was praying. Frank remained as stoic as ever. Together, we inched our way towards the door that had closed moments before. I braced myself and opened it, expecting the worst. Nothing came, and I looked inside. The room was empty, save for a ladder that disappeared into a hole in the ceiling. The night sky greeted us. Of course they would hide on the roof. After a quick game of rock, paper, scissors, Frank climbed the ladder first, with me close behind. We stepped onto a small stone patio. From the roof of the McCann building, the main part of the hospital looked inviting. I caught myself wishing that I was in my office and not playing this stupid game. Look there. Frank pointed to a small figure in the corner of the patio. The doll was propped up against the stone railing that overlooked the main entrance. I picked the doll up and looked over the railing. It didn't look so high up from here. I wondered if I leapt from here, I'd survive. I grasped the railing and began to hoist myself up when Frank called out, "What are you doing?" I froze. What the hell was I doing? A spell of vertigo gripped me as I backed away from the railing. Did I seriously just consider jumping off? I shook it off. "Come on," I said sullenly. "Let's go find the last doll." We searched McCammon for what seemed like hours. We thoroughly swept through the 4 floors, twice without any luck. I was starting to feel more irritated than annoyed. The strangest part was that there was no more weird noises. I started to question if there was only 4 dolls to begin with. If there was a 5th doll, we would have had to start tearing up the floorboards to find it. Our search for the 5th doll came to an anticlimactic conclusion when the sun's rays began their way into the hallway, filling it with a lavender glow. A wave of relief rushed through me, but in the back of my mind, I still regretted that we never found the last doll, if it ever existed. Things started to get weird since we played the game. Every morning around 3:33, I hear the pit-patter of small feet run by my office, or if I'm on patrol, I hear a child giggling. These things always last a couple of moments, but it always scares me when it happens, even though I expect it. I've returned to my camp since that night, but there are only 4 dolls on display behind the glass. I could have sworn there were 5. Come and find me. I'm still alive, but I still hear the noises every night, and they have even been occurring at my house. Where can I find help? And that's the end of that story as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you like me reading a really long story or if you like me reading like little stories, because sometimes you just find some of both. But anyways, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye! I couldn't find my phone still, so I turned on the TV to catch the time. We need to check it out. It could be a trespasser. Could be a trespasser. The faint tinkle warmed us greatly. Wait, what? The faint tinkle warmed us. What?